Single dad saved his drunk boss from trouble. The next day, she didn't pretend to forget it was just another quiet evening. The rain tapped softly on the windows of the small house, and the sound of the wind howling outside filled the room. The man sat by the window, his hands resting tiredly on his lap. He had worked hard all day, balancing his two jobs, just to make sure his daughter had everything she needed. Life wasn't easy, but he tried his best to make things work. His little girl was everything to him. She had been waiting up for him, her small face lit up by the glow of the kitchen light. She was a bright spark in his life, always eager to help and make his days better. She ran up to him when he entered, throwing her arms around him with a huge smile on her face. "Daddy, dinner's ready!" she exclaimed. He smiled warmly, feeling a rush of love. He might not have much, but he had her, and that made everything worthwhile. Breath. They ate together in the small dining room, talking about their day and sharing stories. After dinner, they settled on the couch to watch TV. Breath. It was a simple life, but it was enough. Just as they were getting comfortable, there was a knock on the door. The sound was sharp and sudden, breaking the peaceful atmosphere. The man stood up, puzzled. He wasn't expecting anyone. He looked over at his daughter, who was now standing next to him, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Who do you think that is?" she whispered. He shook his head. "I don't know, honey. Stay here. I'll check." He walked over to the door and opened it. Standing on the doorstep was a young girl, drenched in the rain, looking lost and scared. Her hair clung to her face, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Excuse me, sir, I'm lost," she said, her voice shaking. "Can I stay here for the night? I don't know where I am." The man's heart softened immediately. Rest. He knew how it felt to be lost, even though he hadn't been a child in years. He glanced over his shoulder at his daughter, who was watching with wide eyes from the living room. Without thinking, he stepped aside and let the girl in. "Of course you can stay," he said. "Come in, you're soaking wet. I'll get you something to dry off with." The girl stepped inside, looking hesitant but grateful. Breath. She didn't say much more, and the man noticed how her eyes darted nervously around the room, as though she wasn't used to such a humble space. The man was about to offer her a towel when his daughter spoke up. "Can I help?" she asked, her voice soft. The man smiled at her. "Of course, sweetheart. Get the towel from the bathroom, please." His daughter rushed off, and the man turned back to the young girl. "Are you okay? Do you want something warm to drink?" The girl nodded. "Yes, please." "That would be nice." As his daughter returned with the towel, the man helped the girl dry off, feeling a bit awkward as he did. It was clear the girl wasn't from around here, but he didn't press her for details. She seemed to be in no hurry to talk about where she came from or how she ended up on his doorstep. All he knew was that she needed help, and he wasn't about to turn her away. They all sat down together in the living room. The man didn't want to make the girl feel uncomfortable, so he kept the conversation light. He asked her if she liked any particular kind of food or if there was anything she wanted to do, but the girl just nodded quietly, her eyes drifting to the window as the rain continued to pour. As the evening wore on, the man's daughter and the young girl started to chat. His daughter asked simple questions about her, like what her favorite color was or what kind of games she liked to play. The girl smiled faintly but still seemed distant, as though her mind was elsewhere. Britt. After a while, the girl said she was tired and needed to sleep. The man offered her the couch, but she hesitated before accepting. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As he turned off the lights and tucked his daughter into bed, the man couldn't help but think about the girl. Something about her seemed out of place, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, or the way she looked at things, as though she had seen much more than she was letting on. He shrugged it off and crawled into bed, hoping that by morning the girl would be on her way and that life could return to normal. The next morning the man woke early, as he always did. He stretched and yawned, glancing over at his daughter who was still sleeping peacefully. He got up quietly, making his way to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. It was a simple meal: eggs, toast, and some fruit. He enjoyed the quiet moments in the morning before the world got busy. As he was scrambling eggs, he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw the young girl standing in the doorway, looking a little less tense than the night before. "Good morning," she said softly. "Morning," he replied with a smile. "How did you sleep?" "Good. Thank you for letting me stay," she said, her voice still quiet but with a touch of warmth. "You're welcome," the man said, turning back to the stove. "I'll make you some breakfast." "How do you like your eggs?" "Scrambled, please," she replied, glancing at the table. "Is your daughter awake?" The man nodded. "Race. She'll be up soon. She's usually the first one up." "Why don't you sit down and have a seat?" The girl took a seat at the small table, folding her hands in her lap. She still seemed a little uncomfortable, like she didn't quite belong here. But the man didn't press her. He knew that sometimes people needed time. Once breakfast was ready, they all sat down to eat together. His daughter talked excitedly about school, telling the girl all about the games she liked to play and the subjects she loved. But the girl only smiled politely, not offering much in return. It wasn't until after breakfast, when the man was cleaning up, that he noticed something strange. A girl had been on the phone in the other room, and he had overheard bits of the conversation. Her father was on the other end, sounding both relieved and a little anxious. He kept asking her where she was and whether she was okay. The man couldn't hear everything, but he could tell the girl's father was worried.
When she hung up, the girl looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "I'm sorry for the trouble," she said, standing up from the table.
"My dad is sending someone to pick me up." The man felt a twinge of confusion. "It's no trouble at all," he said quickly. "You're welcome to stay until your ride gets here." But the girl shook her head. "Thank you," she said softly. "But I think it's better if I go now." The man nodded, not wanting to make her feel uncomfortable. "All right. But if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to come back." The girl smiled faintly, and then, just like that, she was gone. The man watched her leave, still unsure of what to think. He had no idea who the girl really was or what her story was. But he knew one thing for sure: helping her had felt like the right thing to do. The day after the girl left, life returned to its usual rhythm. The man went back to his work, his daughter headed to school, and their small home was quiet once more. It felt strange, though. The events of the previous night lingered in the man's mind, and he found himself often thinking about the girl. She had seemed so distant, yet there was something about her that felt different from anyone he had met before. The girl had left without much of a word except for a quick thank you. She hadn't mentioned where she was from or why she was out there in the first place. The man respected her silence but couldn't help but wonder who she was. Was she just a lost girl who happened to end up on his doorstep? Brett. Or was there something more to her story? Days passed, and the man pushed the thoughts to the back of his mind. He had his hands full with his work, and his daughter, who seemed happier than ever. She loved to tell him all about her day at school, her new friends, and what she was learning. It brought him joy to see her growing up strong and full of life, even though they didn't have much in terms of material wealth. One morning, while the man was cleaning up after breakfast, there was a knock on the door. He wasn't expecting anyone, but as he approached it, he felt a strange sense of anticipation. He opened the door, and to his surprise, it was the girl again. Her clothes were dry now, and she looked a little more at ease than the last time he saw her. She smiled faintly when she saw him. "Hello again," she said softly. The man stood there, slightly taken aback. "I wasn't expecting to see you again. Are you all right?"
I'm fine, thank you.
She replied. "I just wanted to thank you again for letting me stay. My father was worried, and I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye properly." The man nodded. "I understand. I'm glad you're okay. But you don't have to keep thanking me. You were welcome to stay." Breaths. The girl seemed to appreciate his words, but her expression was still guarded.
It's just that I've never been in a situation like that before.
"My father is very protective. I don't usually go anywhere without him knowing exactly where I am." "I can imagine," the man said, trying to ease her discomfort. "But you're safe now. That's what matters." But there was something in her eyes that suggested she wanted to say more. However, she didn't. Instead, she glanced behind her, as if checking for someone. "Actually," she said, "I was wondering if I could ask you for a favor." "It's a little strange, but..." The man raised an eyebrow. "Curious. What do you need? I know this might sound odd, but my father..." "Brain. He's asked me to come by and visit the house again, but I don't think I can go back right now. Would you mind if I stayed here for a while longer?" The man felt a little taken aback. This wasn't what he expected. "Of course," he said quickly, trying not to sound too eager. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need." The girl's eyes softened, and she looked relieved. "Thank you. I know it's a lot to ask, but I don't feel ready to go back yet."
Take all the time you need, he replied, offering her a warm smile.
"I'm sure everything will be fine." As the girl came inside, the man couldn't help but notice the sense of unease in her. She wasn't just some lost girl. There was something deeper in her eyes, something that suggested she was carrying a weight that most people her age didn't have to bear. He didn't know what it was, but it was clear that she was running from something, or at least avoiding it for a while. She sat down at the table, and they exchanged small talk for a while. His daughter wasn't home yet, so the house felt a little quieter than usual. The man couldn't shake the feeling that something important was going on beneath the surface, something that was too big for him to understand just yet. He tried to focus on the present. It had been a while since he had had someone to talk to besides his daughter. But as much as he tried to connect, the girl remained distant, her answers polite but short. Breath. He respected her space, understanding that sometimes people needed time to open up. As the day went on, the man found himself growing more and more curious about her. She seemed to come from a world he didn't know, one that was far beyond his humble life. And yet she was sitting there, sharing the same space with him, as if she didn't belong to the world he was used to. Eventually, his daughter came home from school. She was thrilled to see the girl again and immediately ran over to give her a big hug. The man could tell that his daughter had grown attached to her, and he smiled at how quickly they had become friends. As the evening came, the girl seemed a little more relaxed. She laughed quietly at his daughter's stories, and for a moment it felt like the house was just like any other, full of warmth and simple joys. But the man still couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story than she was letting on. The girl was no longer just a lost soul in need of shelter. She had become part of their lives in a way he hadn't expected. And while he was glad to offer her a safe place, he couldn't ignore the sense of mystery that seemed to surround her. The following days passed quietly, but the man couldn't shake the sense that something was changing. The girl seemed to settle in more comfortably, but there was an unspoken tension in the air. She was becoming more comfortable with them, but it wasn't just her presence that had changed things. It was the way his daughter looked at her, almost as if she saw her as a big sister. One evening after dinner, the girl stood up suddenly as if something had just clicked in her mind.
I think I should leave, she said quietly.
The man looked up, surprised. What? Breaths. You don't have to go if you don't want to.
She paused, glancing at him. It's not that I don't want to.
I think I need to face whatever it is I've been avoiding. My father will be looking for me. It's time to go back. The man stood up, his heart heavy. He had grown accustomed to having her around. The house, though small, had felt fuller with her there. Are you sure? You can stay as long as you need. She smiled, her eyes softening. Bruh. Thank you for everything. You've been kind to me, and I'll never forget that. But I have to go home now. She left the next morning. As she walked down the driveway, the man watched her leave, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. There was still so much he didn't know about her, but he respected her decision. Whatever it was that she was facing, he hoped she'd find the strength to overcome it. As the days went by, life went back to normal. His daughter kept asking about the girl, wondering when she would come back. The man didn't know how to explain it, so he just told her that the girl was doing fine. Breath. He didn't mention the things he had seen in her eyes, the fear, the sadness, the weight of something unseen. He didn't know what the future held for the girl, but he knew that whatever she was going through, she had found a brief moment of peace in his home. And for that, he would always be grateful. Days turned into weeks, and life gradually returned to its usual rhythm. The man continued his work. His daughter went to school, and their little home settled back into the peaceful routine they had known before the unexpected visit from the girl. But there was something different now. A lingering feeling remained, one that he couldn't quite shake. He found himself thinking about the girl, wondering where she had gone and what she was doing. He never got the chance to ask her more about her life. He knew she had left for a reason, and that reason was still a mystery. But in his heart, he couldn't help but feel a sense of concern for her. The man didn't talk about her much with his daughter. She still asked about her now and then, asking when she would come back, but the man always gave the same answer. I'm sure she's doing just fine. His daughter didn't seem to mind too much. She had a way of finding joy in the little things, like the stories she would tell about her friends at school or the games she played in the yard. The man tried to focus on that, on the things that mattered most. After all, it was his daughter's happiness that meant the most to him. One afternoon, as he was sitting on the porch enjoying the rare moment of quiet after a long day, he saw a car pull up in front of the house. It was a sleek black car, the kind he didn't see often around their neighborhood. The man stood up, feeling a strange sense of curiosity. Who could this be? The car stopped, and the door opened. To his surprise, it was the girl. She stepped out, looking different from the last time he had seen her. She wasn't drenched from the rain, nor was she hesitant. This time, there was a calm confidence in the way she carried herself. She walked toward the porch with a smile, her eyes bright and steady. Hello again, she said, her voice warm but not rushed. The man's heart skipped a beat. breaths. I didn't expect to see you again. Is everything okay? The girl nodded, standing before him with an air of composure he hadn't seen before. Yes, everything is fine now. I've been thinking about everything, and I wanted to thank you again for everything you did for me. The man didn't know what to say. He had done what anyone would have done, offering her shelter and kindness when she needed it most. But to see her standing there now, looking so much more at ease, made him feel like she had come a long way in such a short time. I'm glad to see you're doing well, he said, his voice soft. Inspiration. She smiled. I've made some decisions, and I'm on a better path now. Things aren't perfect, but they're better. The man nodded, feeling a sense of relief. I'm happy to hear that, Ration. I didn't want to pry, but I always wondered what was going on. You seemed like you were carrying a lot. But the girl's expression softened. She didn't look away or shy away from his words. I was, she admitted. But I've learned that sometimes running away from things doesn't solve them. I had to face what I was running from. It wasn't easy, but I'm getting there. Bye. The man felt a mix of pride and sympathy. He knew what it was like to struggle with things you couldn't talk about, the heavy burdens that weighed on your chest. But the girl had done something that not many people had the courage to do. She faced her fears head on. I'm really glad you're okay, he said, his voice full of warmth. You always have a place here, you know that? The girl smiled softly. Thank you. That means a lot to me. They stood there for a moment, the silence between them comfortable. It wasn't awkward or forced. It was the kind of quiet that came from understanding and shared experience. I don't want to take up too much of your time, she said, breaking the silence. I just wanted to say goodbye properly. And to let you know that I'm okay. I'm doing better, and I'm on the right track now. The man nodded. I'm happy to hear that. You take care of yourself, all right. I will, she replied with a nod. I'll always remember your kindness. You didn't have to help me, but you did. Oration. And that means more than you know. She turned to leave, but then paused, looking back at him. Thank you, she said one last time, her voice full of sincerity. The man smiled and waved as she got back into the car. As it pulled away, he watched it disappear down the road, a sense of peace settling over him. He didn't know what the future held for the girl, but he knew she was strong enough to face whatever came her way. He walked back inside and found his daughter in the living room, playing with her toys. She looked up at him with a bright smile, her innocent face full of joy. Who's that, Daddy? She asked, curious. Oh, just someone I helped out a while ago, he replied, sitting down next to her. She's doing okay now. His daughter nodded, then went back to her game, her thoughts quickly shifting back to her own little world. The man watched her for a moment, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the simple things in life. As the days passed, the man continued his work, his life with his daughter moving forward. But every now and then, when the quiet settled in and the evening came, he would think back to that girl. He didn't know what she would do next, but he hoped that whatever it was, she would be all right. But he had done his part, offering her shelter and kindness when she needed it most. And in that small act he had learned that sometimes the greatest gift we can give to someone is a safe space to heal, even if just for a short time. He would never forget her, nor the lesson she had taught him, that no matter how small or quiet the act of kindness, it can make all the difference in someone's life. And for that, he was grateful.